We're going to go to Exodus 20, verse 3. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Let's go. Deuteronomy 32, verse 39. See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. Then we got Psalms. Let's go to 82, verse 1. A psalm of Asaph. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 14. You shall not go after other gods, of the gods of the people which are round about you. Let's go to Exodus 15. Let's do verse 11. Who is like unto thee, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? Okay? So, I wanted it to read those book chapter verses in the Tanakh before debunking the lie of the mother goddess. Now, we're going to go ahead and talk about Hathor because she's a mainstream goddess that's well known. So is Isis, but Hathor is definitely the one that we got to pay attention to. So, we're going to start reading here. Okay, just bear with me. It says, this picture of Hathor was made by Susan in Luxor. It says, Heru, Hathor, goddesses of love, beauty, happiness, and fertility, also the goddesses of the sky and the heaven. She was everything that is true and good, all that is best in wife, mother, and daughter. It says, goddess of singers, dancers, artists of the vine, of beer, joy, happiness. She was identified with the star Sept, which is the star Sirius. Okay? So, if we can go to Hathor and Sirius connection, what will we get? It says the connection between the Egyptian goddess Hathor and the star Sirius is direct and deeply rooted in ancient Egyptian religion, astronomy, and agriculture. Hathor was known as the sovereign of the stars and was identified with Sirius, also known as Sabdet. Her annual festival coincided with the heliacal rising of Sirius, which marked the beginning of the annual Nile flood, symbolizing rebirth and the start of the Egyptian New Year. Lady of the Stars, Sovereign of Stars is her name. Okay? Now, let's go to the Egyptian goddess Bat. It says Bat is an ancient Egyptian cow goddess, right? It says she was a celestial goddess of the sky and fertility, often depicted with a human face, cow ears, and horns curving inward. By the Middle Kingdom, her identity and attributes were largely absorbed into those of the goddess Hathor. Okay? So Hathor is Bat. She's a later version of Bat. Okay? So, with that being said, we could see this depiction of Bat, and we could be able to see the pentagram all over this depiction, right? Which is very ironic, because they tell you that Hathor and Sabdet is one and the same when it comes down to the star system Sirius. So, when you take a look at Sabdet, ancient goddess who personified the star Sirius, then you could be able to go to Wikipedia and you could see the pentagram, right? Then, if you want to go to the 5 wounds of Christ, pentagram, you could be able to see that the 5 wounds of Christ pentagram represents the nail holes in his hands and feet and the spear wound in his side. Historically, this was a Christian symbol, with each point representing one of the wounds from the crucifixion. However, the symbol's meaning is not exclusive to Christianity. It is also used in other religions and can be a point of confusion due to its later association with the occult, especially when inverted, right? They're talking about the upside down pentagram and how that relates to Baphomet, right? But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the star Sirius and how the pentagram represents the star Sirius, right? And how the star Sirius represents Hathor because she's the lady of the stars, right? So let's go back. And let's go ahead and read. It says, because of the help and protection of Hathor, the dead are able to attain everlasting life. That sounds like JC, huh? Because of JC, because of JC's blood, you're able to be attained everlasting life, right? That's very interesting. Het Heru and Het Hert are both the names of the goddesses. Het Heru means house of Horus, right? Temple of Dendera. Since Horus the Elder, Heru was also seen as the sun god, right? So let's see if that's true. Horus the Elder, seen as a sun god. Yes, Horus the Elder was seen as a sun god, as his right eye was identified as the sun. As the original sky god, he was considered to encompass both the sun and the moon. This is the reason why Hathor represents the sun and the moon. Now let's keep going. It says, with the sun being his right eye and the moon his left. He was also sometimes called the god of the east, which is crazy because Hathor represents the lady of the west, right? Or the god of the rising and setting sun. Very interesting, right? So we have to understand something. Horus, the house of Horus, represents the name of a goddess. Okay? And when you take a look at this goddess, Hathor, she is the consort of Horus, and she is also seen as the mother of Horus too. So when you're talking about Hathor and Isis, they go hand in hand. Before it was Isis, it was Hathor. Before it was Hathor, it was Bat. All of these 3 goddesses are the same damn goddess. They're the same mother. That's what I'm showing you here. And this sun that you see in the sky represents this Horus. Now, why in the world would the mother represent Sirius and the sun represents the actual sun? Good question. Let's look up Sirius, if it will let me. Sirius, sun behind the sun. It says the phrase Sirius, sun behind the sun, refers to the period when Sirius is temporarily invisible from Earth because it is hidden in the sun's glare. It says a phenomenon also called the Sirius-Sun conjunction. It says this happens in July and August, and its return, known as the Heliacal Rising, was a significant event for ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, who associated it with the flooding of the Nile. Now you know why Hathor represents the flood of the Nile, and now you know why she represents Sirius. It's based off of the Heliacal Rising, the dog days of the summer. This is how you get Anubis, the dog star, right? All of this is scientific based upon ancient Egyptian knowledge. This is dealing with star worship. That's all it is. It's star worship. This is the reason why when you take a look at Hathor, they tell you that she's the goddess of what? The sky and the heaven. But we all know that there's more than one heaven. And we all know that there's more than one sky. So, based on my last video, we've shown this. The one that wants to be like the Most High is called what? Lucifer. It says, the religion of Hathor is of immense antiquity. Hathor was the mother of the light, thus connected to the first act of creation, the creation of light. This is BS. In the Egyptian view upon creation. That might be the Egyptian view upon creation, but that's not the view of us, the chosen people. That's not our view at all. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at the mechanical version of the Torah, you could be able to see this thing. You could be able to see who created light in the beginning. It says, in the summit, Elohim shaped the skies and the land. What did I say about us having more than one sky and more than one heaven? Huh? It says, and the land had existed in confusion and was unfilled, and darkness was upon the face of the deep water, and the wind of Elohim was fluttering upon the face of the waters. And Elohim said, light will exist, and light existed. Now let's check the word Elohim, right? Elohim in the Strong's means powers. Powers, right? So now we know this is more than one power that's doing this thing. We all know that the Most High has something called a divine council. So I wonder what this divine council would be named. So for this mother goddess to create light, that's BS. Before there was an Egyptian civilization as we know it, her religion was already in existence. Here we go again. It says the goddess religion was in existence in southeastern Europe since directly after the melting of the ice caps of the last ice age. It says the priestesses in this old civilization wore cow horns with the moon symbol in between the horns. This old civilization knew the art of writing, which recently had been identified as hieroglyphs far before the ancient Egypt hieroglyphs. It says there is a direct relationship between the ancient goddess civilization and the ancient Egyptian religion, certainly through Hathor. Now, the ancient goddess civilization before ancient Egypt has already been debunked by mainstream archaeologists, okay? And we could take a look at this and take a look at the reasons why. The concept of a widespread unified Neolithic great goddess worship in Europe, as popularized by archaeologist Marija Gimbutas, has been widely debunked by modern archaeology and other academic fields. Critics argue that Gimbutas's work oversimplified the evidence, projected modern concepts onto the past, and lacked a solid methodological foundation. The goddess hypothesis, right? So we've already heard the hypothesis of the goddess already, right? It says primary reasons for the debunking. Archaeological consensus now holds that Gambudis's interpretation was based on several critical flaws: misinterpretation of figurines, household objects or toys, representations of ancestors, educational items or teaching aids, objects representing fertility rites. Then it says symbols used in rituals or magic, lack of evidence for a matriarchy, oversimplification of old Europe, methodological issues, right? The legacy of the goddess hypothesis. Look, I mean, just it says ultimately the debunking of a unified Neolithic goddess cult is not a rejection of female deities in prehistory. Instead, it is a move toward a more nuanced and evidence-based understanding of ancient belief systems, acknowledging that while female deities and figurines were present, their significance and the nature of Neolithic societies were far more complex than the single great goddess theory suggests, because the great goddess theory is based off of this whole peaceful civilization based off of the ancient mother goddess being worshipped all throughout southeastern Europe. And that's bullcrap. That's bullcrap. Okay? And they show a lot of topics on how this hypothesis has been debunked. And they're still debunking it till this day. So when it comes down to these people actually are theorizing, saying, oh yeah, well, you know, there was an ancient goddess civilization before ancient Egypt. That's BS. That's BS. So, when this article tells you about the ice caps of the last ice age and how the priestesses in this old civilization wore cow horns with the moon symbol in between the horns, you have to understand that when it comes down to these ancient monuments, these ancient sculptures, you have to understand that over half of them don't even look female. You have to understand that over half of them are not even female figurines. This has been debunked in so many levels, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous at this point. Whoever throws you the goddess narrative before Egypt, just show him or show her why that can't be true. Around that time period, around the Neolithic time period, you had so many ideologies out there, so many belief systems still in the Neolithic time period, to where it doesn't make sense for a goddess civilization, a peaceful goddess civilization, to exist broadly like that. It just makes no sense. And this is what I mean by the author of confusion. You see? It says, as the cow goddess, she is the lady of the Holy Land, which means the country where the people risen from the dead are staying. So, the lady of the Holy Land is based off of what? If I just type in lady of the Holy Land without Hathor, will it give me Hathor? Let's find out, right? We're finding out together. Well, I'll be damned. Our Lady of the Holy Land refers to a devotion to the Virgin Mary at the sanctuary of Our Lady Queen of Palestine and of the Holy Land in Deir Rafah, Israel, a place of prayer and hospitality established in 1927 to ask for Mary's protection of the land where JC was born. patronage of the Holy Land, right? The sanctuary was built to invoke Mary's protection over Palestine and the Holy Land. It says a region deeply significant to Christians. So they're talking about the Virgin Mary here. Now watch this. Hathor, Lady of the Holy Land. It says the Egyptian goddess Hathor was known by the epithet Lady of the Sacred Land, which referred to the afterlife in ancient Egyptian religion. This sacred land was the western necropolis and not the region known today as the Holy Land, located in modern-day Israel, Palestine, and Jordan. So even though it's not related to that, it still has the same spiritual concept with the Virgin Mary and JC. So what's the difference? The only difference is the location, but not the concept. This is what they try to do to us. Hathor's role as Lady of the Sacred Land and Mistress of the West was to protect and nurture the souls of the dead on their journey. She would provide them with refreshment, shade, and nourishment in the form of water or the milky sap of the sycamore tree. Crazy. This is just unbelievable. It says the worship of Hathor was universal in the whole of Egypt during all millenniums of the Egyptian civilization. Hathor is a multiple goddess, appearing in multiple personalities at the same time. Sometimes she is seen in 18 personalities, also in 12 Hathors, sometimes in 8 personalities. Do you see this, y'all? This is why she has so many damn different names. It says, but the appearance in 7 Hathors was generally accepted. The 7 goddesses have tambourines in their hands and tight-fitting dresses. Now, how many people do you know in today's churches have tambourines in their hands while celebrating JC? Ain't this about a... The 7 Heru multiple goddesses are prophetic fairies. Okay? It says, in this way, she is connected with the goddess Pil, who is also manifold in her sisters. So Pil is manifold in the personalities of Hathor. This is what the article is saying, y'all. And Pil is a Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes. The multiple goddess are related with the scale of music, the octave. So when it comes down to the octave, you're talking about the number 8, right? Let's do sacred geometry. Fuck it, let's do it. The number 8, right? Let's take a look at the number 8 for a second. This is the number 8. Okay, cool. Now let's take a look at the spiral goddess. This spiral goddess with her hands above her head, she's making one circle, and then her hips all the way to down to her feet is making another circle. That's a number 8. As a matter of fact, let me get a better picture. There we go. Now you see the number 8? I'm not making this shit up, y'all. Sacred geometry. Now, why in the world is her vagina based off of a spiral? This is the depiction of Ein Sof in the Jewish Kabbalah. This right here is Ein Sof, the woman's vagina. This is why they call Hathor the mother of the Milky Way, right? Because if you take a look at the Milky Way, this is what they perceive the Milky Way to be, right? The Milky Way. This is what they perceive the Milky Way to be, right? Which is a spiral galaxy. This spiral galaxy here is the Milky Way. But then again, take a look at stars spinning around Polaris. This is your actual Milky Way right here. That's the real Milky Way. And you know what's so ironic? This Milky Way actually matches your finger. If you take a look at your finger, you could be able to see that the circly lines that are creating this wave pattern, like a damn water drop dropping on a pool of water, and the vibration of that water drop dropping on that pool of water creates these big ass waves of nothing but circle, and they stretch out throughout the pool of water. It's the same thing with your finger. These are waves. These are sound waves. This is why they say that Hathor is the goddess of music. But no, this has nothing to do with Hathor. This has everything to do with the Creator. This has everything to do with the Creator creating you based off of the knowledge of his heart. The Creator's voice is the sound wave. This is why I told you about sonoluminescence in my last video. Sonoluminescence is the emission of light from collapsing bubbles in a liquid when they are excited by sound waves. This occurs when a sound wave causes a gas bubble in a liquid to expand and then violently collapse, creating a flash of light and extremely high temperatures inside the bubble. While the exact mechanisms are not fully understood, the theories suggest the intense heat is from the rapid compression of gases and vapors within the bubble. Now you know when it says God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Now you know exactly what they mean by that. Water is an element, remember. Let's go to Jubilees. 2 and 2. What did it say? The very last verse, well, the not very last verse, but the very last sentence of the verse, right? In Jubilees chapter 2, verse 2. What does it say? He created, right? That means the Most High. The Most High created the abysses and the darkness, eventide and night, and the light. There it goes right there. And the light, dawn and day, which he hath prepared in the knowledge of his heart. Your heart beats, doesn't it? The heart beats. It has a pulse. Vibration. Frequency. Y'all don't know how deep this shit goes. You really don't. So when they tell you about Hathor and how she is the goddess of the Milky Way, they're lying to you. They want you to believe that she is the creator, when in reality, she's nothing. She's a Luciferian. She is. She wants to be like the Most High, but she can never get there. And she could try all of the personalities that she wants to. She's never going to get there. Sometimes Het Heru is depicted with the head of a lion. Very interesting, huh? This connects her to the tarot card of strength. Tarot cards are divination. We're not supposed to mess with divination according to the Tanakh. She has the head of a lion. Who else has a head of a lion? Let's see, shall we? Who has the head of a lion when dealing with Gnosticism? It says, Yaldabaoth is a figure in Gnostic myth, often depicted as the demiurge, the false creator of the material world. He is an ignorant and arrogant being who falsely believes he is the supreme deity, unaware of the true spiritual God. Right? Then it says Yaldabaoth is frequently described as having the head of a lion. You can't make this shit up, y'all. But then again, it tells you that Hathor has the head of a lion. You know, she's also associated with snakes too, right? But now I'm jumping the gun, right? I'm jumping the gun. I'll save that for part 2. And the body of a serpent, right? And is associated with the creation of the material universe, which Gnostics saw as flawed and corrupt. Ain't this about a... So you mean to tell me that they used the Luciferian characteristic and placed it on this god called Yaldabaoth. And this god is supposed to be Yahweh? The so-called false creator? Right. We see what type of game they playing then, huh? It's crazy. It says her music instrument is the sistrum. It says a very special melodic rattle. Even now, the sistrum is being played in the Coptic Christian Church and the Ethiopian Christian Church. You know what amazes me? Right? I wanted it to go back to the octave. Right? This octave right here. We was talking about the number 8. There was a serpent. There was a serpent that actually represented electricity. But this serpent actually represented the number 8 as well. And it started with an O, right? It's Ouroboros, right? Representing infinity. Cycle of renewal, right? Death and rebirth. Ouroboros. It says the serpent that looks like an 8 is a modern interpretation of the ancient symbol known as the Ouroboros, representing infinity. It says the traditional Ouroboros is a snake or a dragon eating its own tail in a circle, symbolizing the eternal cycle of renewal, but it is often stylized into a figure 8 or infinity symbol in contemporary culture. Doesn't that look like the witchcraft symbol of the spiral goddess? That also looks like a number 8 too, huh? Like I said before, you can't make this shit up when they tell you that she represents the lion head, but she also represents snakes at the same damn time. You can't make this shit up, y'all. Because she represents infinity. Why does she represent infinity? Because she represents rebirth after death. This is the type of stuff that they have you guys believe when it comes down to Christianity. They believe that JC, you believing in JC will help you save your soul forever and ever. They believe that the blood of JC can give you spiritual atonement forever and ever. As long as you believe in him, right? You good. Didn't JC compare himself to Nehushtan? An actual snake? But then again, the y'all only community is tripping though, right? We gotta be the ones tripping. Out of everybody else, we gotta be the ones tripping. But then again, you put 2 and 2 together, and now you're seeing we ain't tripping at all. Ouroboros. Now, if we go back to this, it talks about Coptic Christian churches, and then it talks about the Ethiopian Christian church, right? Because we have to understand the sistrum. We have to understand the tambourine and how this all relates to Christianity, right? And we're going to dig deep into that in part 2. Because as you can see, we got a long way to go, right? But this part right here is based off of Hathor and Christianity. But this whole Lady of the Holy Land thing has something to do with Christianity too. In Egypt plays a role in that, especially Heliopolis, which is the biblical On. Heliopolis, meaning city of the sun, right? Remember who the Lady of the Holy Land was before we put in the name Hathor, right? The city of the sun, right? We've been talking about the sun god and Sirius, right? And the sun Sirius. Now watch this. City of the Sun was a major city of ancient Egypt. It was the capital of the Heliopolite, or 13th Nome province or district, or Lower Egypt, in a major religious center, right? It says its site is within the boundaries of Ain Shams and El Mataria. What is El Mataria, right? El Mataria is an eastern area of Cairo, Egypt, okay? The district holds the ruins of the ancient Egyptian city of Heliopolis, one of the oldest cities of ancient Egypt. Now, in this old city of ancient Egypt, why in the world would they call this old city El Mataria? Because Mater means mother and is from the presence of the tree of the Virgin Mary in this district. You can't make this shit up. And guess what the tree of the Virgin Mary is, y'all? The cedar of Babylon. Not Babylon, I'm sorry. Salakia. The cedar of Lebanon. The cedar of Lebanon. Watch this. Tree of the Virgin Mary. Cedar of Lebanon. It says the cedar of Lebanon is a symbol for the Virgin Mary, often called the cedar of Lebanon as a title for her, and also represents eternity, strength, and holiness in Christian tradition. This association stems from its symbolic qualities, such as its resilience and longevity, and its appearance in religious texts and art, such as medieval manuscripts that depict the Virgin Mary with an embedded image of Christ. The cedar as a symbol of holiness. Remember, Lady of the Holy Land, right? The Holy Land in Egypt. Tree of the Virgin Mary. This tree of the Virgin Mary is considered the cedar of Lebanon. But then again, they tell you, nah, it's just about the afterlife. It's just about death and rebirth when dealing with Hathor. But then again, this death and rebirth concept is in Christianity too. Now, why in the world would they name a district after a Christian character? Then you take into consideration Roman Egypt. Then you take into consideration on how Alexandria, Egypt, you had a lot of Jews who basically had this conception of, worshiping a deity while worshiping the Most High at the same time. And then centuries later, the Romans decided to take that idea and use it based off of Christianity. It's a lot of things that we don't know, but there's also a lot of things that we do. And we can't sit here and act like this shit is not in front of our faces. The Most High put this shit in front of our faces for a reason. Don't ignore it. Part 2 coming soon, y'all. All praises to the Most High. Thank you for watching. I love y'all. Shalom Barakas.